In this Diablo 4 video, I'm going to be showing you my Bloodlancer build. This is a Necromancer build that's aimed at levels 50 plus and World Tier 3, and is a blood-focused build that focuses on using Overpower and the Bloodlance ability. If you've been looking for a good minion Necromancer and one that doesn't focus on Blood Surge or Bone Spear or Shadow damage, then check out this video. So first, let's take a look at the Bloodlance ability. This flings a Bloodlance in a straight line that sticks into an enemy, dealing damage. And for 3 seconds, any Bloodlanced enemy will take damage from any other enemy hit with Bloodlance, meaning you want to spread your Bloodlances around if possible. Since Bloodlance, once upgraded, will also pierce through the enemy that's been lanced or any enemy that's been lanced already, dealing 15% reduced damage. If you can line up enemies and fling Bloodlances through the original target, you'll be easily stacking up damage on multiple targets at the same time. And we have the upgrade here that makes it so every 8 times you cast Bloodlance, you have a guaranteed Overpower and a Blood Orb is spawned from the first enemy hit. This is a lot of huge damage if you can get your Overpower damage high. So the biggest issue with Bloodlance is that you only have 3 seconds from the time that you hit the first target to hit as many targets as you can. This means that you want fast attack speed in order to be able to get as many lances out as you can at the same time. And you also want to spread lances around. So if enemies are like all spread out all over the screen, you are going to have a hard time hitting them all with lances, whereas if they're all bunched up in a bunch and the first lance goes in and then the next lance goes through that guy into the next person and so on, you get a lot more damage that way. So ways that we help improve this playstyle: first is the aspect of Hungry Blood. This makes it so that when Bloodlance hits an enemy that's already lanced, it has up to a 20% chance to fire a second Bloodlance at a nearby enemy, and this is 30% on an amulet or up to 40% on a two-handed weapon. This is a great way to increase the amount of Bloodlances that come out, helping to really up your damage, because remember, for each enemy that you stick with a Bloodlance, all the other enemies that have already been Bloodlanced will take damage. And another way that we facilitate this is through the aspect of Rothma's Chosen, and what this does is it makes it so that whenever your blood skills overpower, when one of them overpowers, your attack speed increases by up to 50% for 4 seconds. This is going to speed up the rate at which you fling blood spears, because you're going to overpower every 8th cast, and sometimes it's every 8th cast is the second cast of that time, because you've already built up 6 casts. So this can get your, off the ground running and really flinging blood spears at like a super fast rate. I also have the accelerating aspect here, which makes it so that when you critically strike with Bloodlance, your attack speed increases by up to 25% for 5 seconds. So these two combined are going to make you fling things really quickly. That and the fact that we're using a one-handed weapon for this. One-handed weapons obviously have higher attack speed, allowing you to go through your animations more quickly, allowing you to fling Bloodlances faster. And the weapon that I actually recommend for this build is a one-handed scythe, and that's because it's going to give you life on kill. And the reason I have a wand here is because I got a perfect roll on the Bloodseeker's aspect, and I didn't know what to do with it. I had good, other stats on it, and I didn't want to pull it off there, and I didn't have a very good one-handed scythe, so I left it. But you want a one-handed scythe for that life on kill, and I'll explain why that is in just a second. And the Bloodseeker's aspect makes it so that the first target you hit with your Blood Spear is going to take extra damage for each other target you hit with your Blood Spear. So if you throw this into an elite, and then every time you pierce through that elite and hit another enemy, they're going to take even more damage than they would originally, helping to wipe them out more quickly. And another part of this build is managing your essence so that you can constantly fling Bloodlances. You don't want to stop in between Bloodlances because you get that engine going with crits, you get that engine going with overpowers, and then you want to just be able to keep flinging Bloodlances because you kind of build up this engine that you become this like turret that's just like rap, and you're flinging them out, and you don't want to stop because you ran out of essence. And what I've done here is I'm using the aspect of the Umbral, and this gives you up to 4 essence, or whatever your primary resource is, per enemy that you CC whenever you CC them. And because I'm using corpse tendrils here to round up enemies with, using a corpse, this is going to give me back a lot of essence when I do this. If you watch in the gameplay footage, you'll see that my essence is going down, and then all of a sudden it's poof, back up to full when this triggers. This is a great way to keep you topped up. You can just fling one of these real quick in the middle of your combo and keep flinging Bloodlances immediately afterward. Another great aspect here is the aspect of Potent Blood, which I didn't happen to get, but it says that while at full life, Blood Orbs grant you up to 20 essence. This is great because you can fill up on essence really quickly. However, I find that I don't move much when I'm flinging Bloodlances. I become a turret, I'm pretty stationary, I'm just trying to fling them as fast as I can. So unless you're moving around, stopping, throwing your Bloodlances, this isn't going to benefit you as much as something maybe like Ring of the Umbral or something else that will give you more resources. And another way that facilitates essence is by dipping into the Bone Graft tree. I dipped into this just a little bit and then went out into the Blood tree. And the reason I did this is because there's a node cluster there that gives you maximum essence, but also gives you essence on kill. And this is really, really important because as you kill enemies, you're going to generate essence so you can keep flinging blood spears. This is really, really good if you're having essence issues. If you're not having essence issues, you don't really need to do this. But I find that I need as much essence as I can get. And this is one way we can do that also. Additionally, Grim Harvest is always a good way because you get your attack speed going so fast with this build. You can use Corpse Explosion really fast, and you can just regenerate a lot of essence that way too in between pulls. I find I don't try to use it as much while I'm fighting a group of enemies, but in between pulls I'll just top myself off real quick before I go into the next one. And you can obviously use it to deal damage as well. So let's talk a little bit about how we get overpower damage and how it plays a big factor in this build. So first of all, the key passive we take with this build is Rothma's Vigor. This increases your max life, and after being healthy for 15 seconds, your next blood skill automatically overpowers. Healthy means over 80% health, which is pretty much constant for this build. Tides of Blood also makes it so your overpower damage for blood skills is increased by 15%, and this is doubled if you're over 80% health up to 30%. You can also look for overpower damage on your equipment. This will help as well, and you can put rubies in your weapons in order to further boost your overpower damage. But another really good way to get a ton of overpower damage is by using the aspect of Untimely Death. And what this does is it makes it so that each percent of your maximum life you heal beyond 100% health grants you 0.5% bonus to overpower damage on your next overpowering attack up to a certain percentage. In this case, 60% on a regular, and you can obviously get more if you put it on your amulet or your two-handed weapon. This is huge because this means that every blood orb you pick up, every potion you use that overheals you, in fact you can use potions to overheal if you want, the life on kill that you get from your one-handed Reaper or your one-handed Scythe that you're using is going to help build up to this, and you can see the little marker for it, or the little icon above your skill bar, building up as your health is going over, so you can see how much your next overpower damage is going to get benefit from this. This one aspect alone will give you about 50 to 75% as much overpower as all the rest of those sources combined, so this is huge. And again, remember that if you have a bunch of enemies chained when you overpower, they all take all that overpower damage. And also keep in mind that your overpower damage is not only affected by these things, but also by your max health. So the higher health pool you have, and the more health you have, the more damage you're going to do with overpower. And as well as fortify. The more fortify you have, the more your overpower is going to hit for. So the general concept is to stay healthy, stay fortified, fling blood lances quickly, get overpower damage quickly, that's very high, and overheal yourself because of life on kill and because of blood orbs and things like that allow you to just constantly keep this machine going. So a couple more things about this build. First of all, I sacrificed the Golem here in order to give us more health, but mostly I sacrificed him because I did not have an extra place on the skill bar for him. And that's because besides Blood Lance, I have Bone Splinters. This is just a basic attack in order to be able to gain essence if you need it for whatever reason, or maybe when you're fighting a boss to put vulnerability because we've taken the upgrade that gives vulnerability, which will increase your damage. And it's also not a blood ability, so it's not going to accidentally consume that overpower you're getting every 15 seconds, because you really don't want to waste that on a basic attack. We have Corpse Explosion here to make use of all the corpses on the ground to deal some AoE damage when necessary, but also to recover, essence at the same time. I have the Skeleton skill on here because we have mages and warriors. I have the warriors set to Reapers to give us more corpses that we can heal with and get essence from, and the skeletons, and also get essence from use Corpse Explosion. I have the mages set to Cold to give us more essence, and they also can help freeze enemies. And I'm also using the aspects that give you 2 more mages as well as Coldbringer's aspect, which makes it so they cast a blizzard that chills enemies that are standing in it. And this is because this really helps out in this build. When they rain this down on a whole group of enemies and freeze them all, it really protects you and saves you, and it can also boost your damage. I'm actually using the control glyph here, and what this does is it makes it so you and your minions deal 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies, or instead 20% increased damage to stunned or frozen enemies. So you and your minions are always pretty much going to get 10% extra damage because you're constantly chilling everything with your mages. But then you also get extra damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and since you have Corpse Tendrils which does this, and because the mages are constantly chilling enemies, you're going to gain a pretty good damage boost from this. So that wraps up the Blood Lancer build. I hope you guys found it informative. I don't have all my gear optimized here because I've been constantly changing builds on my Necromancer, my Rogue, and my Druid, trying to come up with new builds for you guys to show you different styles of play, so it's hard. I've run out of materials, I've run out of gold, but you get the idea how this works. If you want to play a Blood Lancer build, the problems that you're going to have to solve are how you manage your essence, how do you get attack speed fast enough in order to keep attacking rapidly, and how do you get your overpower damage high enough so that when you do hit overpower, it absolutely wipes out everything on the screen. Stay tuned for more Diablo 4 build guides as we inch closer and closer to our World Tier 4 builds and 70 plus builds.